I'm Dr. Bill Crooks, and the purpose of today's video is to run through the process of determining the texture of your topsoils. This is an important characteristic when calculating your lime requirements, as they can vary by up to 40% depending on the texture. Soil texture is the term used to describe the sand, silt, and clay content of topsoil, and it's different from other soil characteristics such as structure because it'll never change. Soil structure, on the other hand, is determined by how we manage our soils and can change over time. Correctly understanding your soil texture can save you money, but more importantly, it will make sure that you meet your pH targets, as this is a key factor in achieving optimum yields. Soil texture must be determined on a field-by-field basis. Most farming businesses will include several different soil types that will have different textures. In most cases, field size and boundaries were originally set based on soil texture, such an important management factor. In some cases, soil texture can vary in-field, which is why precision and zone testing can be very valuable. The main message is that a single liming rate is rarely suitable for all the land you manage. Understanding soil texture on a field-by-field basis will improve the accuracy and efficiency of lime applications. All the information covered in this video is available in the Farm Advisory Technical Note 656, which can be downloaded from their website. Once you've determined your soil texture, the note will guide you in calculating the right lime rate for your land. Within the technical note, there is a step-by-step guide to determine the exact soil texture of your topsoil, but you can also have it analyzed, which will become an increasingly valuable tool as the science of agriculture improves advisory advice that is customized to your soil type and texture. For the purposes of lime rates, we use a simpler system that places topsoil into one of 5 texture classes, which includes sand topsoil, which includes sand and loamy sands, a separate class for sandy loams, a general class called other mineral that covers a wide range of soil types, with the main feature being their lower sand content, and 2 additional classes, humus and peat, that covers soils with a high or very high organic content. Today we're only going to be looking at 3 different types of soils: sand soils, sandy loams, and another class called other mineral. The other 2 types, humic soils and peaty soils, are hard to simplify and hard to draw general conclusions about because they can vary from site to site. The liming of these high organic soils is typically uneconomical, so you always have to think twice before you start applying a lime to these types of soils. The first 2 classes we'll cover today are sands and loamy sands. These are characterized by being poorly structured materials, so they're very loosely structured, granular, very gritty in nature. In terms of sands, when you handle a sand soil, one of the key characteristics is that it won't stain your hands afterwards. There's not much clay in there, there's nothing to stick to your hands afterwards, okay? When you move over to a loamy sand, we've got a bit more of a clay content in there. Typically they'll have slightly higher organic content as well, but still, when you grab it and you compress it, a moist sample, it will form a ball that will break apart very easily. Okay, so once you can form it into a ball, but that ball will not hold itself together for very long. Once you have a loamy sand, typically a moist sample, once you handle it, it'll also stain your fingers a little bit. Okay, both these soils are characterized very dominated by their sand content. They require less lime to be brought up to a pH target. But once they're on that target, they won't stay there as long. So you don't need as much lime, but you'll need to apply it more often to stay on target. The next soil we're going to look at is a sandy loam. Now this soil is very common in many of Scotland's upland farming systems, so upland grassland systems. So very common, usually typically a very shallow soil, but again, a good quality soil. One of the key characteristics or difference between this and the loamy sands and sands is that when you work this soil, so you really give it a good work over, it'll form into a ball that'll retain its structure, so you can handle it like this. You apply a bit of pressure and it'll break right apart again, but you weren't able to do that with the sand or loamy sand, so that's a key characteristic. In terms of liming, it'll take a bit more lime to get this on target in terms of pH compared to a loamy sand or sand, but once on target, it'll stay there a bit longer. The next 3 soils we're going to look at all belong to the other mineral class. This is a broad class that covers a wide range of different soil types. The first one we'll look at is the clay loam. It's a very typical soil in Ayrshire, in grassland dairy systems. It's characterized by the ability to form a very solid ball. So once you really work the soil and get rid of the structure and get into the texture, it forms a firm ball that will take quite a bit of pressure to break up. One of the key characteristics of a clay versus some of the other soils we'll look at is when you smear it, you do not get a shine. Okay? It will smear, but it will not take a shine. Another key characteristic is that as I'm working it, I do not feel any grit in there, okay? It's smooth, not silky, but smooth. The next one is the silty clay loam. This is very common in the Midlands in Scotland, in the lower lying areas. Again, this soil, once it's worked, so once you've worked away the structure and into the texture, it'll form a nice solid ball. And one of the differences between a clay loam is that when you smear it, it'll take a bit of a shine. Okay, again, there's no grit in that. It's very smooth. Another key factor, however, is that it's very silky. Okay, and that's a key characteristic of a silty soil is that they're silky. The clays are smooth, but the silts are silky. Look. The final one here is a sandy clay loam. I've chosen a real challenging one here because it does look like this soil could actually be a sandy loam or even a loamy sand. But once I've worked that soil, got rid of the structure, and down to the texture, I see that it's forming a nice solid ball that'll hold its shape under a little bit of pressure. It takes quite a bit of pressure to break it up. I can smear it. I don't get a shine, just like the clay, but what I can see in there is the sand particles. And as I'm working it, I can feel the grit and I can actually hear it, which is a key characteristic of a sandy clay loam versus a clay loam. Digging deeper into the type of soils that you're managing is going to become an increasingly important part of your day-to-day business decisions. We're starting to provide advice now that changes depending on where farms are located and on the types of soils that are being managed. So in order for you to really fully understand and to make sure that you're getting the right advice, you need to spend the time and make the effort to fully understand your soil type and texture.